Hi, my name is Jenny Williams, and I'm the pastor of Avery United Methodist Church in Morgantown, West Virginia. It's difficult to find the words to describe this week, and I suppose heavy will have to do for now. The whole country has watched again and again as George Floyd, an unarmed man who was African American, died under the knee of a police officer who was white. He repeatedly asked for help. He was clearly dying. He was unarmed. His death was senseless. It's been a heavy week also because in our town there's been some controversy over an encampment of people who are presently experiencing homelessness. These folks have been given tents to live in by folks in local churches and in local community groups and organizations because their tents keep getting taken and their stuff keeps getting taken. And a local landowner gave these folks permission to camp on his property on a lot he owns. This has been difficult for some people to leave alone, and it's been an issue of some controversy, especially over the past week. The response to these things has been extraordinarily painful. I watched as one of our local House of Delegates, a woman who is African American, poured her heart out to Facebook and to the world as she tried to explain what it's like for a Black woman to live in America. I watched a video that was made by a friend of interviewing some of the folks who live in the encampment where people who don't have homes are staying. And I watched as they tried to explain that we're just people too. I watched as two groups of people who are not like me and perhaps not like you tried to defend their existence and their worth. Jesus tells a story of a man who was badly beaten and left along the side of the road. And one man passed by, and he crossed the road to the other side and walked on by, leaving the man lying there. A second man walked down the road, saw the man lying there, crossed to the other side, and walked on by. A third man came along. He stopped and knelt beside the badly beaten man, attended to his wounds, and provided for his continued care. The story is the parable of the Good Samaritan. It's a story that often gets told in our culture about people who help. We even have laws named for it. But there's a depth to this story that I think is important to acknowledge today. One of the components of that story is the identity of the two people who didn't help the man. The first was a priest, and the second was a Levite. They were both leaders, religious leaders, people who were well respected in the community, people who were learned, people who were thought to be good. When they saw the man beaten and lying there, they crossed over to the other side and walked away and did nothing. They didn't want to see what was going on. There were norms that they would have violated to go help the man, and they walked on and carried on with their lives as usual. I think by the time that folks get to middle age, folks who are upper middle class and beyond, have carefully constructed our lives to be the way that we want them or to be on track to the way that we want them. We see what we want to see. We have or try to make plans to have what we want to have. We're on this path of constantly trying to make our lives our own, on our own terms, by our own definitions, and meeting our own desires. And I wonder how many times you've seen something and crossed the road and kept on walking by. I'm talking to white people now. How many times have you seen a person of color on the street, felt unsafe, put your hands in your pocket or clutched your purse, grabbed tight of your cell phone, crossed the road, and walked away in fear? How many times have you seen a person experiencing homelessness and decided it's too awkward to look in their eyes and say good morning? I'm going to walk to the other side of the street and keep on going. People of privilege, people who are white, people of certain socioeconomic class have the luxury, the privilege to cross to the other side of the road and walk on by. Because it's not a life that we lead, and it's a life that, quite frankly, is interfering in the life that we want to build for ourselves. We can't do this. It's the responsibility of those who are not lying on the side of the road wounded to point to the existence of the people who are and to do something about it. We have to say, hey, this person has been disregarded and discarded. And the people who share this person, this wounded person, same characteristics, whether it's skin color or it's socioeconomic background, these are people who are having to scrap and fight to defend their own humanity. We have to do it. We who are not in those places. We're gonna screw it up. We're not going to do it right. We need to be in conversation with the people who are wounded. We need to be in relationship with the people who are wounded. We are not going to swoop in and fix the day, but we have to use our voices. We have to find ways to kneel down beside the wounded person with their messy and bleeding and open wounds and tend to them and provide for their care. And get out of the way and let them tell their story when they want to. You might wonder how to do this. There are so many resources out there to help you on this path, whether you're just starting or you've been walking down it for a little while. There are all sorts of levels of things you can do. There are books to read, there are videos to watch. You can just simply Google on the internet, what are things white people can do to help people of color? What are things people can do to help people who are experiencing homelessness? Wherever you live, there are organizations that are already doing that work, and they need to be listened to, and their instructions need to be followed, even though it might violate what we think is best. If you want to go to my personal page, I've made a number of posts public. You can read some reflections there. You can look at some videos. But you can't do nothing. Especially white Christians, you can't do nothing. You can't be the religious people, the good people who look and see something painful and cross the road and continue on walking. There are two choices for us. One is to join in the effort to not only defend someone's existence, to not only legitimate their existence, but to cultivate a flourishing existence. And that is going to be hard and painful work. It's not easy. It's not convenient. You can choose to do that, or you can deny what's going on. And I hope I hope particularly for white Christians that you'll take a look at Scripture, that you'll look at those stories not as something to be sentimentalized, but stories that are instructive for what we should do. At the end of the story of the Good Samaritan, as Jesus is talking to someone about how he can love his neighbor, the person doesn't even really know. Jesus lifts up the Samaritan as the person who helps and says to the one who wants to learn, "Go and do likewise." If we don't do that, we're not listening to Jesus.